What's good, YouTube? It's your boy TSO Sage and I'm back with another video. Now I'm really excited to do today's video because it's so weird. There'll be a player that gets the notion that they're underrated, then over time because they're underrated they end up becoming overrated, and then because people start overrating them we go back to underrating them. And dear God, it can happen the other way around, in which a player who starts off overrated becomes grossly underrated. And it's something I want to talk about, so if you guys like the video, don't forget to like the video. Let's get right to it. So the first thing I want to talk about, because duh, it's about to be the whole subject of the video, is how this even happens. Like, how does someone initially become over or underrated in the first place? Well, it does start with people being contrarians. You know, the people that zig when everybody else is zagging. If everyone's walking one way, there's gonna be the one motherfucker that wants to walk the other way. Some people pour milk in their bowl before the cereal, shit like that. And everybody to a degree does some shit like this depending on the situation. One of these days y'all gonna get tired of me calling you crayon eaters and you're gonna start eating like markers or something. Like, I understand, I get it. But all jokes aside though, whether it's the people who are just commonly contrarian or the situation comes up in which you yourself are different from everybody else, at bare minimum it does create a different perspective. Sometimes it can be a shitty one and we'll get to that in a minute, but for the most part simply having another perspective is a good thing. Now once you translate that to the NBA community, let alone player rankings in the NBA community, 1 + 1 = 2, my boy. Like, that's how players get that label of being overrated or underrated. And like I said earlier, they have to have a valid reason for it to count, otherwise it's just some stupid crayon eater having a hot take. But if, and finally let me get to an example here, if someone says, hey, Lonzo Ball's really good at shooting threes, he's also really good at defense and a really good playmaker, why do people say Lonzo sucks? I think he's underrated. And if for the majority of people who hear that take go, oh well, he dropped off by Fox to UCLA, he airballed 3 in LA, yeah, Lonzo sucked, boo boo. As I said in one of my other videos where I made even more points on, it would speak for itself that Lonzo would be underrated. But then check this out, and this is the point of the video that I find most interesting. Somehow that same person in a couple of months, because they keep saying he's underrated, will somehow overrate Lonzo Ball. The player that was just underrated somehow becomes overrated. And fuck it, let's stick with the Lonzo analogy. If the same person who says Lonzo is now underrated because he can hit the 3 ball now, while still playing good defense, good rebounding, good playmaking, all the other shit Lonzo does, just imagine if one day that same nigga jumps the gun and says, bet, Lonzo's better than Dame Lillard. What the fuck? What happened? Like, you was just saying Lonzo was underrated. I didn't know you thought he was a top 5 point guard in the NBA. Like, god damn, boy. And I know, Sage, that's an extreme example. That's the point, my nigga. It's an example. This is a part of a really long intro. I just wanted to make it clear as day as to what the fuck I'm actually talking about in this video. And I ain't gonna cap, if you stayed for that long ass borderline 3-minute intro, you a real nigga. In fact, just to see how many people stayed through that intro, if you're hearing this right now, comment TSO Sage, my best friend. So now the part that most of you guys were looking forward to, let me go to these players who I think fit this narrative of once being overrated, then becoming underrated, then becoming overrated, and vice versa. Let's start off with your Brody, Russell Westbrook. Now I've said countless times and slowly but surely people are following suit, Russ in 2017, extremely overrated in my opinion. If a much more efficient and much more impactful James Harden decided to jump up and grab someone's miss 2 more times a game, he'd be your MVP, don't even lie like he wouldn't be. If rather than simply leaving OKC, KD got hurt for the season, y'all wouldn't even talk about Russell Westbrook like that, 1. And 2, even if I don't give James Harden 2 more rebounds because yeah, that matters so much, he'd probably win off the fact that KD didn't leave the Golden State, meaning there's no sob story for Russell Westbrook. It's just him carrying a team. Carrying a team. That leads me to my final point. You know the Thunder play defense, right? I'm not saying they're this elite team. I'm not saying Kevin Durant not being there didn't change anything, but everybody acts like they were the worst roster in the league outside of Russ, and that just was not the case at all. Chris Paul making the playoffs with his Thunder team was way more shocking than Russ making the playoffs with that Thunder team. And that's not even my personal take or anything. That was a very common projection. Several media markets, several analysts, a lot of people projected the Thunder to still make the playoffs between the 6th through 8th seed. Like, KD did leave and that shit was crazy, but nobody was calling the Thunder shitters versus the 2020 Thunder, who people actually thought would be the worst team in the league. Moving on from 2017 though, this is actually where Russ starts to become underrated in my opinion. Russ certainly struggled in the playoffs from that point forth. I mean, damn, the numbers across the board kept going down. Not to mention the fact that he lost the series in the first round in 6 and then the following season lost in 5. Then he goes to Houston and even starts playing well in the latter half of his time in Houston until he runs into the Lakers, the champion Lakers. But in that series, Russ was pretty much exposed. And at that point, I was no longer calling Russ underrated because he got a lot of shit for it. Played really fucking bad, so I mean, yeah. But then that backlash just kept growing and growing and growing. His start in Washington really wasn't that good. And as a result, people started to completely invalidate everything Russ did in his career except for 2017. It got so bad that almost majority of starting point guards in the NBA all of a sudden were more talented than Russell Westbrook. I kid you not, the arguments weren't even who would you rather have on your team. Straight up, who plays basketball better, Blank or Russ? Blank won like 80% of the time. The shit was crazy. And it's probably one smart ass that's gonna be in the comment section talking about, oh, well, I would actually take nothing over Russell Westbrook on my team. Like, all right, bruh, chill the hell out, bro. And I was starting to slowly but surely believe Russ has somehow become underrated. But then he starts getting them triple doubles again, and he had one crazy ass game where he had like 20 assists and 4 turnovers or some shit. And as I sit back and watch the small amount of people who slowly but surely are starting to say Russ is better than Kyrie again, or if they don't go that extreme, they start calling him a top 5 point guard again, I just sit back and I'm like, huh, y'all never gonna quite get this right, are you? Like, y'all don't know how to let 2017 go, but at the same time not call him a cuck point guard. I don't even know what the fuck a cuck point guard is. That's just how my mind works, bro. That shit just came to me. But I'm leaving it in because it sounds mad disrespectful. Y'all do be disrespecting Russ to a degree, but once the Brody gets that triple double, y'all go right back on top of him. That shit is wild as hell, but I don't really be tripping. Now, the next player I want to talk about is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai not only is a Clipper, but his first year in OKC was grossly underrated, especially last season, because granted he wasn't a rookie, so that's probably why he wasn't talked about. Everybody was talking about Ja Morant, and my mind went to, y'all don't see the 6'6", 20-year-old point guard in OKC? Or even if I don't have to compare him to a rookie, people were talking about the growth of Lonzo Ball, or how Colin Sexton was turning up in Cleveland. Plus, when you factor that he was a part of that wild-ass Paul George trade, SGA, in my opinion, at that point in time, was underrated, but if that's a stretch, at least underappreciated. Well, that's definitely not the case now, because my fuck. I mean, I've done heard it all. Devin Booker, Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, all of them can't hold a candle to the greatness that is Lord SGA. Like, we're talking about perennial all-star level talents here, versus SGA, who finally has arrived on the scene. And outside of fandom and bias, clearly isn't on that level quite yet. Do I think he will hit that level? Yeah. I think SGA has a good chance of being better than Trae Young. He has the build and skill set to be better than the other guys too. But today, what the fuck? Chill, bro. It's okay. Let him grow, let him develop. And as of right now, I'm not even gonna lie to you, SGA is still kind of overrated. Oklahoma. But if I have to be honest here, I was really looking for an excuse to talk about SGA. The takes y'all saying really be triggering my squad, and I had to do this for the boys one time. Especially my boy Mikey right here. Go ahead, sub to that channel. Get him to 1K. What the fuck? Anyway, last one, because I have to rush and put out this video because goddamn I ain't uploading like 10 days. It's Carmelo Anthony. Now, Carmelo Anthony may be the best example of this entire video because his whole situation exceeded the sports media. It affected his actual job. Like, from other players, coaches, managers, even owners. They themselves actually ended up viewing Carmelo Anthony in different limelights on several occasions. Coming into the league, Carmelo Anthony was projected to be one of the league's best scorers. Not only was he that, he was one of the better scorers of all time, clearly. But with him betting on himself, or in my opinion, just taking the money and going to New York, his lack of success there did start to make people think he was a bit overrated. But fuck even just saying fans thought he was overrated. By the time his tenure in New York was up, let alone the time his tenure in Oklahoma City was up, people went as far as to say that Melo doesn't belong in the league and he doesn't help your team. And it was all jokes, troll, and games until he was actually not in the league anymore, which was disgusting and stupid. Like, if you wanted to argue that there were 5 players on every NBA team better than Carmelo Anthony, cool. 10? Oh God, you're an idiot. Like, what the fuck? No. Oh, but Sage, he took a lot of deep middies and posted up. He was a ball hog. The game changed. Melo indeed at the time was an isolation scorer, but I never heard of isolation basketball just being extinct in the NBA. I know he was no longer an all-star player doing it, but there's a lot of isolation players in the league today that aren't necessarily all-star caliber. Calling him a ball stopper was just some stupid I hate Melo take. And even if you wanted to slice it to the highest degree and say Melo caught the ball and for 24 seconds tried to isolate and shoot a mid-range, which isn't the case at all, but even if we wanted to exaggerate it that far, he still wasn't out the league terrible at it. Like, yo. And now I know what you're thinking. Okay, well, you're about to say he's overrated, so you're thinking that Portland Melo is overrated. No, not at all. Portland Melo chilling like shit. But because Melo was actually grossly underrated at this point in his career, let alone by fans, surely enough, Melo's prime is definitely going back to being overrated. I seen the tweet a while ago. If I find it, I'll definitely put it up here. But that shit was like, oh, well, if Carmelo Anthony had LeBron's teams, he'd have one less ring than LeBron himself. Listen here, motherfucker. At worst, and I mean worst, a person of reasoning, logic, no bias whatsoever, yet severely downplays nowadays LeBron James has him in the top 5 greatest players of all time, right? Is Carmelo Anthony even slightly sniffing that conversation? Let alone are those teams built for fucking LeBron James? Them niggas don't even play the same. Like, yo, what? I'm not gonna dive too deep into it, but the main point was in 2011, he doesn't choke versus LeBron choking. If we're gonna use 2010 Melo to be this example, then it may surprise you, but go ahead, look up the numbers. But LeBron James choking is very comparable to Carmelo Anthony showing up, which is hilarious. But hey, LeBron's one of the better players of all time, dumbass. Especially if we're gonna say fuck defense and just talk about scoring the ball and ignore scheme fit. Dallas could definitely win that series any fucking way, but and more importantly, why the fuck are we talking about Dallas? That nigga not beating the Bulls? The Bulls is smoking that Melo pack. Like, what the fuck? Do you guys remember exactly how and why the Heat beat the Bulls? This nigga LeBron James, and I believe game 2, just sat up in the 4th quarter and was like, yeah, Derrick Rose, you're done. Played elite defense on Derrick Rose for the rest of the series. I don't know about you, but I don't think Melo could do that. And I'ma just say it, because it needs to be said. LeBron James is a better scorer than Carmelo Anthony. Like, I know when you hear Melo's name, you think offense, but no, LeBron still has that shit, especially that year, and the gap gets bigger with time. Don't even do it. I don't want to keep talking about this for too long, but long story short, he might beat the Thunder. He's not beating the Spurs. He damn well ain't winning in fucking Cleveland. And obviously, by the time he goes to LA, he's not even Carmelo Anthony anymore. Even if you just wanted to plot the best version of Carmelo Anthony in every LeBron team ever, okay, I'll definitely give him LA, but that's at max 2 rings. Then you have the people who are like, oh yeah, prime Melo today? He'd be top 5 easily. How long is this video? Like 12, 13 minutes? How am I gonna respond to this? No, he wouldn't. And oh yeah, shout out Ben Simmons for making the thumbnail and not making the video. That's tough. For real, the only reason Ben goes from overrated to underrated back to overrated is because niggas want him to shoot the damn ball. Nobody thinks he's ass, but bruh, shoot the damn ball. But that's gonna do it for today's video. It's been your boy TSO Sage. Now, because I lied on Twitter about when this video would be up, I made a self-pack that if I didn't get that video up by the time I said I would, that I would then proceed to upload for 10 days straight. So yeah, I have a nice little series coming up. Obviously has 10 episodes, maybe even more, but that depends on honestly if I like doing it and the feedback that the series gets. But yeah, 10 days straight. Why did I do this to myself? I don't know. So for those of you that are not used to these words, oh, you definitely will be. If you guys like the video, like the video. If you like my content, subscribe. Why the fuck you watching my shit and you're not subscribed? And it's been your boy TSO Sage. Dear God, I'ma holla at y'all later. Take care and stay blessed.
It's young Phenom, yeah, I got the cannon. If a nigga talk too much, I gotta blame him. I wonder where the hate come from. Gotta be a dum-dum, undercover someone. You one of my children. Is it the paper, the moolah, the haters, the rumors, the leaked news of me and your shorty in Kama Sutra? I might just shoot you, guns blazing, my little Ruger. It's not a blooper, in the Honda I just maneuver. Italian spot where they serve my fettuccine. Make sure my linguine super steamy and not too creamy. Toasty panini, couple bites of tortellini. I'm feeling dreamy, phone buzzing, she wanna see me. On my way to the biddy, you know the vibes, bro. My drip is hydro, big waves up in my Tado. I'm in a Tahoe, big body Uber on time home, while me and my driver talking bullshit, smoking tobacco.